It's time now for Call of the Wild, the official weekly coaches show of the Wenatchee Wild. Stay up to date with your team all season long with Call of the Wild. With head coach and GM Bliss Littler, here's the voice of your Wenatchee Wild, Arch Ecker.
Hello and welcome to Call of the Wild, your weekly Wenatchee Wild coaches show. I'm Arch Ecker and my guest is Wenatchee Wild head coach and general manager Bliss Littler. Coach, you're at the back end of a 4-game homestand and started off as good as you could possibly hope for with the win over Langley and then the solid win over Salmon Arm. And then you come back to face a Prince George team that you had already played once, kind of embarrassed a little bit in their house, and you knew you were going to get a solid effort from them, and they brought it.
They did. They're a proud group, and they're well coached. They wanted to come in with a better effort, and they definitely did that. They gave us all we wanted on Friday night.
So for the first time, you saw an opponent score first against you, and how did your team react to that on the bench?
I think we were fine. It is something that the first goal does matter. Statistically, the team that scores first usually wins at every level. So it is something that we do take some pride in, and we want to jump on teams early if we can. But it's also a good sign if you get down that you're able to bounce back. And there's definitely it was early enough in the game where there's definitely no panic on the bench that we were able to get it back fairly quickly.
You know, the successes that Prince George has had this season in the 3 games that they've won, they've outshot their opponent in each of those 3 games. The Wild, while being obviously noted for being high-flying offensively, they've also been extremely good at limiting shot opportunities.
I think we've done a good job with that. We do want to be a team that creates offense. We feel that it's a group that's deep, that's going to be able to score goals. But on the other hand, you need to limit what you give up. And we don't give up a whole bunch, but the ones we do, the chance we do give up, they're usually some pretty decent chances. And our goalies have been good as of lately.
You know, typically when you're filling out a lineup card, most coaches will have 12 forwards and 6 defensemen, and for the most part you've gone with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen, maybe partly by necessity, but how do you manage that?
Well, we like our depth up and down the lineup, the forwards we have and also with the defense that we have, and it just happens that right now I feel we're a better team by playing 7 defense, where if we play 7, our D have a little bit better legs, that we can get up, we can do a little more pinching offensively, that our D get up the ice, join the rush a little bit more, and it also gives us a chance with a couple of young guys that are on our 4th line. We can place Charlie Combs, Brendan Harris, Dakota Raby. I think Colin Bursting gets quite a few shifts there. We can place one of our higher-end players on our 4th line, and it makes our 4th line deeper.
You know, one of the fun moments in Friday night's game was on the penalty kill, when all of a sudden you get Brendan Harris and Charlie Combs sprung on a 2-on-0, and that's not something you get to see very often. And to get those two, it had to be it raises the hair on your arms a little bit in a good way.
Well, Chris Clark came down and he said, I can't imagine their goalie. This is how he drew up the power play there, that we come down shorthand with a 2-on-0. It turned into, it was a good block, and both players came down and made enough passes that they showed they were being unselfish. And again, the pass that they had made it a tap in. So it was a nice play.
You know, it's one thing about Brendan Harris that you notice the longer you watch him, he is one of the least selfish players you'll come across.
For sure. That he's always been an offensive player. All 4 years we've had him, he's always had that ability to be offensive. But the majority of it is setting other people up. That he's definitely a playmaker, and he has the ability to finish when he has to, but for the most part, I think he does a great job at setting other people up, and to do that, you have to be an unselfish player.
You know, the finishing touch on that Friday game, the final goal, Sam Morton You know, we've talked about Sam and the opportunities that he gets. While they may be a little bit limited in the early part of the season, he's a kid that makes the most of his opportunities, and he was given an opportunity there, and he absolutely made it count.
He did. That was all the way around to tic-tac-toe, and Sam did a nice job finishing. Where he had a good weekend. Again, you saw him grow a few whiskers. A little more maturity out of him this weekend, and again, we fully believe that he's going to be a very, very good player by the end of the year for us.
Now, what kind of player do you expect him to grow into? Or do you expect him to be a highlight reel sniper? Do you expect him to be a kind of a grinder, or what's his role long term?
Well, we think he's going to be very similar to Brendan Harris, with maybe a little bit more finishing ability. That's Brendan Harris leading the league in scoring.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's a pretty big compliment. Again, he sees the ice very well. He has a lot of the same similarities as Harris does. But again, I also see that he shoots it a little bit more than Harris does. So my guess he's going to be able to finish.
And it was interesting, those two combined for a nice goal on Saturday as well. And again, that was one of those plays where Harris, being unselfish, worked his way around, had his head up looking for someone in front, and there was Sam Morton, right? Johnny on the spot.
Well, absolutely. But if you look where Sam was, he was in a hard to get area. He was right in front of the goaltender, right on the side of the net there. That where you get the puck there, you're going to get knocked on your butt, and you have to be willing to pay the price to do that. To me, just having him in that area was impressive. That he went to the area that he knew that he was going to take a shot, but he got that area and made a play, which I think speaks very well for his potential.
You know, it's funny, I know I'm bouncing around a little bit between the Friday and Saturday game, but as you talk about one goal, and it suddenly reminds me of another. Going back to Friday night, the Charlie Combs goal, it was early, it was the second goal. But what was interesting about that, we see Charlie score a lot because he rips the puck. Mm-hmm. But this particular play, he came around the front of the net, and he was kind of in close quarters, had his arms close to his body, and the puck was there, and he kicked it with his skate up to his stick blade, got a whack at it, and then a second whack to finish it off. I mean, and those aren't, at least from what I've seen early on, and you've obviously spent more time with him, but those aren't always the kind of goals I think of when I think of Charlie. But it shows his well-roundedness.
Yes, Archie, Charlie, when you think of Charlie, he absolutely rips it, and he shoots it like he's a pro. And usually he scores because he gets a shot off so quickly, and it's a hard, accurate shot. But in this situation, he showed some very good patience. That after he got his own rebound, he hung on to it until there was an opening, and then he finished. So no doubt, he's a pretty well-rounded offensive hockey player when it comes to scoring goals.
You know, on the back end on Friday night, Anthony Amnitsky probably pressured more than we've seen him at any point this year, and he responded very well to it.
Played very well, and I think we outchanced him 34-14. But of those 14, I bet 8 were grade A chances. They're definitely more quality chances than we'd like to give up. But I think it bodes well for our goaltending. That the chances that we gave up, I think their confidence has grown, and it also shows the boys on the bench that when we do make a mistake, that we have some goaltending that can back us up.
Well, and both goaltenders were put in that situation over the course of the weekend. You had Garrett and you had O'Play on Saturday, and he ended up having to make a couple of tough saves on some pucks that maybe got turned over in the zone. And again, maybe it's the size, the athleticism, and just the read for those guys that allows them to be successful.
Again, both games this weekend we had very good goaltending, and we've expected that from the start. And maybe some of the chances that we've given up have been some bad chances, and we haven't helped our goaltenders out a lot. But they played very well last weekend, and I think that's a sign of good things to come.
Saturday night was the Troy Conzo show once again. The first period was all Troy, and now he's got 2 hat tricks on the year, and both of them came against Prince George. But, you know, and the 2 goals that he scored, again, just darts.
He got him off pretty quick. He used the defenseman as a screen and got the puck away real quickly, and he was accurate. And, The other thing is, it was at a time that it was kind of a backbreaker. Just a goal at that time that it looks like it's kind of an innocent play that he's coming down, it's a one-on-one, and all of a sudden, snipe in the back of the net. And it kind of makes the other team, even though if you're the goaltender, you probably didn't see it. It's probably screened. But you're kind of thinking, boy, here we go again. I think early on, especially the one from the first period there, I thought right away, it was a big goal for us that we got one from the side slot, and then the next one came down on the one-on-one where it was just a snipe. I think it shows that he's a goal scorer.
Interesting on that play too. It really showed how your team's capable of stretching the ice because it was a feed up the left wall, and Brian Williams had the vision to set up Troy on that break. So talk about Brian Williams and what he's done.
Well, Brian's he's a veteran. Veteran that he's got good offensive instincts, good skill. He's also a kid that he knows how to win. He's been around a long time and didn't panic. He got the puck and just kind of took a stride in the middle, let the play stretch out, and instead of just chipping up the wall, he saw an opening and made a good pass. And, that's what good hockey players do.
So here's an interesting strategy question. I think that once upon a time, of course, and this goes way back, when teams would have the puck possession, let's say in the offensive zone, they would more or less diagram plays to kind of stay on one side, more or less. And then if the puck happened to go to the other side, then everything kind of shifted over. And it seems that there's been more of a shift to where by stretching the ice that allows offenses to maybe expose more passing lanes in the defense. You find that to be true?
Yeah, you do. You see some of that. I can't say that any of that's all by design, but you definitely have drills in practice that you want players to have options, and again, we work really hard at being a transition team to get the puck up the ice, and whether it's a long stretch pass to a weak side, or finding a seam coming across the middle, or using the boards. I think it's something that more and more teams are they've been doing for years now, but it's definitely been more prevalent than it used to be.
I suppose like anything else, it's probably grown a little bit over time, but I remember teams that basically their MO was just to chip it off the glass, throw it out to the middle, and hopefully their guy can outrun your guy. But it seems that your team and others, they've just got a little more controlled approach. It's sort of the same tactic, but in a more controlled fashion.
There's still teams that play that chuck and duck hockey. They chuck it off the glass and run after it and go get it. And there's definitely a time and a place that you have to chip the puck ahead. But in the last 10 years or so, I think a lot of hockey has gone to where you want to be puck possession. You want to make plays. Again, it's not trying to one-on-one people, but trying to outnumber people and put yourself in good situations where you can outnumber people. And again, we want to hang on to the puck as much as we can. We try not to do a whole bunch of chip and chase, but there are times that we do it, and sometimes it's just flat out the right play. When it's an even-numbered situation, you have nothing else. Instead of trying to beat a guy one-on-one, chipping ahead is a lot of times a good play, but moving it to an area that you have a guy that can pick it up and keep the flow going is usually a much better play.
You're watching Call of the Wild. This is the weekly Wenatchee Wild Coaches Show. The Wild coming off a 4-game homestand, which they swept, have an 8-0-1 record, and getting ready to head on the road. We'll talk about that and take a look at the road trip ahead as your weekly Wild Coaches Show continues. It's Call of the Wild on your Wenatchee Wild Hockey Network. And welcome back to Call of the Wild. It's your weekly Wenatchee Wild Coaches Show. I'm Arch Ecker with Wild head coach and general manager Bliss Littler. Coach, team's getting ready to head out on the road. We've got 5 games on the road broken up into a couple of different trips. Starting off this weekend, we'll be in Coquitlam on Saturday and then a stop in Surrey on Sunday. And let's first take a look at Coquitlam. This is a team that we saw in the preseason, and granted, preseason's a whole different animal, so you can throw a lot of that out the window, but nonetheless, What are we looking at with the Express this Saturday?
Well, again, it appears that they're very opportunistic. That you make mistakes that they can finish, and their goaltenders played very well for them all year. So we're gonna have to do a good job up there where the ice conditions. It's a smaller rink. Things happen real quickly in the building, and so we're gonna have to do a good job at taking care of the puck, and we're gonna have to do a good job of getting bodies in front of their goaltender where hopefully you can't see it all the time because he's a big kid.
They seem to be a fairly good-sized team, especially maybe on the back end. Is that something that they've habitually done?
They had good size last year, so again, that's all I can go by is last year. So again, I think Barry Wolf does a good job. He's one of the veteran coaches in the league, and he's the Canada West World Junior Challenge coach. So again, he does a good job. So I'm guessing in a smaller building like that he probably does put it together to be a little bit bigger on the back end.
On Sunday, we'll visit Surrey to face the Eagles, and that's a team that really struggled out of the gate, but they've turned the corner and have picked up a couple of big wins along the way. What do we know about the Surrey Eagles?
Well, they're an interesting team. They dropped a whole bunch of games right at the start, and the games they're dropping, they're scoring 5 or 6 goals in a lot of those games. They're in a couple of games they had 50-some shots, and so I think they're a team that's definitely a lot better than their record, and they've brought back I guess one of the really successful coaches in BCHL history to help run that team now, and so I'm sure that we've seen they've won a couple of games here recently. That like I say, I think that their record is not as it's not as good as how they probably played. And so again, it's another situation. We'll go from a small rink on Saturday night to the largest ice sheet in the league on a Sunday afternoon.
So even with the travel, which is always, I mean, everybody's got to deal with it, of course, but even on weeks when you travel, you still find a way to keep your kids involved in the community, and that's something that's been a strong commitment. I mean, all junior hockey teams do it, but I think the Wild seemed, from what I've seen, they do it just a little bit better.
Well, I've been to a lot of places, and our kids, the minimum is 80 hours of community service, whether it's through youth hockey, learning with the Wild where they're in the public grade schools, or over at the senior center. Our kids, Tuesdays and Thursdays, they're out there, they're giving back to the community, and I think it's one of the reasons that the Wild have had such a large footprint in the Wenatchee Valley.
Certainly, and you talk about 80 hours, and that really adds up when you start talking about the number of players that run through the program. But how do you track all of that? Who's in charge of that?
Chris Clark does, but for the most part, 80 is the minimum. Most kids end up in 100 to 110 hours. That again, when you're doing 2 or 3 hours every Tuesday and Thursday, it adds up quickly. It really does. Where you can see when you start looking at September, October, November, December, January, February, and you start multiplying that out. The hours definitely add up, and I think our kids know that it's a good thing to get involved in the community, and I think that's why they're so well received by the community.
Speaking of things for the community, one of the promotions we did recently on a Saturday night was the Saturday night against Prince George. It was with the Junior Service League of Wenatchee, and jumping on board with the diaper drive, which is something that is done in the community anyway, but for the Wild to be involved in it, that was kind of a new wrinkle, and it actually worked out extremely well.
Arch, it's the first time I've seen that. I've heard about other places doing it, but it's the first time we've done it here in Wenatchee, and with the number of diapers that were collected, you could see the ice is just littered with them, and it felt good to be part of that.
Yeah, there's some 6,700 or so diapers, and 700 wipes, and almost $1,000 in cash. So, yeah, it was an extremely beneficial promotion. And it's great because, again, like you said, it just helps the Wild establish that they intend to weave into the community, not just be an entity that's here to take from it?
Well, I'm sure that when the team came here 9 years ago, there were people that questioned if hockey could make it. And we're at year 9, closing in on 10 real quickly. And I know with David and Lisa White, it's a long-term deal, and you can see that the community has taken to it. And I think you have to do those things in the community to keep people fired up. And I'm just seeing that it's more than hockey, and we do, besides the kids being out, we're also the vehicle to many charitable organizations. Arch, when you think about it, that over $800,000 in the prior 8 years when you count on the jersey auctions, the 50-50 Chuck-a-Puck, that we're the vehicle for people to come in and sell those tickets, and do the 50-50, buy the Chuck-a-Pucks. That stuff adds up. When you start doing 28 regular season games and you add a handful more, hopefully for playoffs, that then you start multiplying that out. There's a pretty big amount of money that's going to different charitable organizations through the Wenatchee Wild.
One of the events that the Wild have been a part of for many years, as well as other junior hockey teams, and I'm trying to make it like we're inventing all of this stuff, but it is stuff that is very important to the community. And one of them leads to the end of the month, October, of course, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we do a thing called Pink at the Rink. And now this year it ends up being October 29th. It's going to happen in a game against Penticton, which is shaping up to be an epic battle anyway, because the success that their team has had early, the success that we've had early. We only see each other once in this building this year. It's going to be that night, Pink at the Rink night, a jersey auction, which helps not only raise money but awareness as well. It's just an unbelievable night.
Well, Arch, it's, I think, in almost every junior team across the country and actually across North America, everybody does a Pink in the Rink night. And it's obviously a cause. It's a great cause, and for us, it's one of our bigger nights of the year. And you throw Penticton in there, again, get your tickets. Get your tickets. That will be a great night of hockey.
Indeed it will. So let's get back on the road trip. We talked about the first leg of it. The second leg of the road trip, we'll turn around about 3 days later and head back north of the border. And we'll start off, we got a 3-game swing where we play back at Surrey again. Then we have to go to Coquitlam and then into Chilliwack the following night. So let's talk a little bit about Chilliwack.
Well, Chilliwack they've been our biggest rival. I think that we played 7, I think, regular season games from last year. We came out on top there, and then we finished second in the division. They finished first. And, the games got a little heated around Christmas time. You could see a rivalry kind of brewing, and I'd say that by the time we got to playoffs with them, that it had turned into a very good rivalry. Chilliwack, again, one of the better organizations in the BCHL. They do a whole bunch of things right, and it's a team that's very well coached. So we expect that the division championship will have to go through them. That they look like they're going to be one of the better teams. So I know that we're looking forward to renewing that rivalry with them up there.
It's going to be fun, and of course we'll be bringing the games home on local radio now on Sunny FM, and it's nice to get that back going.
Yes, it is. Our fans, we never meant for it not to happen, and it got done a little bit later, but it is done, and I know that we're awful excited to have our games carried.
That's right. So every game, home and away, broadcast live on 93.9 Sunny FM. And that is just one more way for you to stay on top of your Wenatchee Wild all season long, including this coach's show here, Call of the Wild. This is Bliss Littler, and I'm Arch Ecker. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on your Wenatchee Wild Hockey Network.
You've been listening to Call of the Wild, the official weekly coaches show of the Wenatchee Wild, a presentation of the Wenatchee Wild Hockey Network.